Welcome to another episode of the Manufacturing Executive Podcast. I'm Joe Sullivan, your host and a co-founder of the industrial marketing agency Gorilla 76. We started the business in our garage. It's almost become one of those phrases that feels like something of legend, but sometimes this is, word for word, how a family-owned manufacturing business is born. And that's exactly the case with my guest today, a second-generation leader of his family-owned machine shop. In our conversation, we'll get into the past, present, and future of manufacturing, how it's evolved from both a technology standpoint and a culture standpoint, since my guest's father moved the cars to the street to make room for a couple of milling machines back in the early 70s, and where it's headed in a world where manufacturing technology is advancing exponentially. So on that note, let me introduce today's guest. As a second-generation business owner in manufacturing, Jim Carr has embraced the opportunities and challenges that come with leading a CNC machine shop that his father founded in 1972. Since becoming sole shareholder and president of Carr Machine and Tool in 2004, after decades of experience working alongside his father, Jim has steadily grown and evolved the business through innovative thinking and action. He is driven to leave a legacy for the third generation. Today, Carr Machine and Tool Inc. has matured into an aerospace CNC machine shop serving elite industries, space and exploration, semiconductor, aerospace, medical, and the Department of Defense. Known for their unique culture, with recent implementation of high technology tools and equipment, 5-axis machining, mill turning, and CMM inspection, it is truly aligned with its accreditation of being a world-class AS9100D facility. Jim's experience includes full knowledge of GD&T, conventional and CNC machining and programming, and CAD/CAM systems, as well as vast industry leadership and service roles. What differentiates him from his manufacturing peers is his innate passion for marketing, brand, and design. In 2014, recognizing the need for more resources for business leadership and manufacturing, Jim co-founded Making Chips, the #1 rated manufacturing podcast with Jason Zenger. Through weekly episodes and speaking engagements, Jim equips and inspires manufacturing leaders across the world with his experience, industry insights, and business wisdom. Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Joe. Thanks. Good to be here. Good to be on somebody else's podcast for a while.
No kidding, huh? You're used to being on the other side of the mic here, so we're going to put the spotlight on you.
And like I told you before, I don't do too many of these because I just like to keep it to people that I know, and I happen to know you. But boy, as you read that bio, I feel like I'm 100 years old. I mean, after all of that, my God. But I guess it's just the decades just start flying by. You just got to keep yourself on your toes, and you just got to keep pushing every day. That's what it's all about.
I suppose so. Well, it's really cool to have you here.
Thanks, man.
I've been listening to your show. I've listened to quite a few episodes over the last handful of years, and I was just listening to one. I took Friday off to stain my deck, which was like this big looming project over me for over the spring. And I sat there and I listened through a few of your episodes while I was out there on the back deck, and including your trends episode, which I'm going to touch on a little later. I want to hear you talk a little bit about some of that. But
sure,
you guys are doing a great show. I always refer to you and Jason as the OGs of manufacturing podcasting. You guys have paved the way, and people like me have followed, but you guys are really the true originals in the space.
If you would have asked me 20 years ago if I would be doing this at my career stage, I would have said you're absolutely nuts. But you know what? The whole thing in life and in business is you got to take a chance. When you hear something, you always hear people say, when you get that aha moment in your head, you got to go for it. Because if it really sounds good, if it really resonates, and if you really feel it in your heart, that's your clue right then and there. You better jump. So
great advice.
And I did. And I mean, it hasn't been easy, but we just kept pushing on, and we Jason and I never gave up.
Good for you guys. I mean, it's you hit this at the right time too. Like this podcast is exploding, but you guys really got it to get in there and establish yourself before anybody else got there in manufacturing. So,
We
I
did.
mean, good for you guys for being
Thanks.
pioneers. It's pretty
Thanks.
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I've got all kinds of
Now
questions to
down to
ask you.
the tough
So,
questions, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
you're on the hot seat
I
now. So,
I don't have to get out my calculator or anything. It's not going to be any technical questions, right?
we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. Okay.
Keep you on the edge of your seat.
Go right ahead.
So you're obviously a manufacturing guy through and through, going all the way back to your childhood.
True.
I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about, your family's history in this manufacturing space and how it led you to where you are today.
Sure. Well, that's going way back, but I'll try and truncate it as much as possible. But my dad was always a CNC machine, not a machinist by trade. Um, Back in the 50s, he was a professional stock car racer and used to race stock cars at Soldiers Field right here in Chicago. When before Soldiers Field was an amphitheater for football, it used to be a racetrack. So my dad back in the 50s used to do that. In the meantime, concurrently, he was working as a machinist, an apprentice machinist, and then a journeyman machinist. I think he went back to like Kraft Foods days. And he always told me that he got most of his experience from the immigrants that were working in that shop and on that shop floor. So he always talks about a Polish guy that he met, and they got really close. And this guy took him under his wing and just showed him the trade, the fundamentals of being a machinist. And he had a lot of drive and he had a lot of mechanical aptitude. And then he went on to be the plant manager of Circle Tool and Manufacturing Company in Des Plaines, Illinois, which is really, I would say, just about a 10-minute drive from where we're at today. And he was there for, I'm going to say, 10 years. And the purchasing agent that was sitting right next to him, Mike, was a good friend. They became good friends. He actually started a machine shop, had some immediate success. And my dad said, if Mike can do it, so can I. And I'm going to try. So he went to auctions. He bought a couple of Bridgeport milling machines, told my mom to park outside because they had a 2-car garage. Her car went outside. He had those machines delivered to our home. And he just started doing odd and ends job part-time. He did that for about 6 months. And then in December of 1972, he made the decision to leave his full-time job and go with Carr Machine full-time. And he never looked back from there. So that's the old story about my parents.
That's cool. Where'd you enter the picture here? You just kind of grew up around this, huh?
So I did. So the funny thing is, when my dad was working in the garage, we had central heat and air conditioning that had run through the HVAC lines in the house, and my bedroom was right above the garage where he was drilling. And I remember my mom swearing. My dad's name was Richard, but of course she called him Dick. Mm-hmm. And she'd say, "Dick, I can't believe it. All that gray cast iron dust is emulating through my house." And that the gray cast iron dust literally would be through our home. So my mom was constantly cleaning and doing that. And I would go in the garage. My dad, he'd have a job, he'd set it up on the drill press for me and I would drill holes. But then towards my senior year in high school, where it really all started for me, I distinctly remember my parents coming to me and saying, we're willing to give you a college education at a 4-year university, or if you think it's appropriate or you feel passionate about it, you can come to work for the company full time and just go to an apprenticeship training, a machinist apprenticeship training. And I'm telling you, Joe, I genuinely thought about that. I remember at 18 years old thinking, well, I looked at my parents, I looked at their lifestyle. I thought, they don't have it too bad. They take nice vacation. My dad drives a Cadillac, and these are the things that an 18-year-old thinks of, right? Mm-hmm. So I made the plunge and I did not go on to a 4-year university. I did, in fact, take a 2.5-year machinist apprenticeship program where I learned the theory or the fundamental theory aspects of the trade. And then I had my my journeyman apprenticeship here at Carr Machine during the day. So I did that for about 2.5 years and graduated, and just worked in that capacity as a manual machinist for years until the mid 80s, when my dad said, I think there's something to the CNC machining. I'm tasking you with implementing CNC technology to the shop floor. And we bought one and saw immediate success. I look back at that time and how everything just clicked. And I think it was a combination of me timing. We all know timing is really important. But I had just gotten married. I had just bought a house. My wife was pregnant with our first child. And I had this opportunity to really evolve Carr Machine to the next level with CNC technology. I don't know if I was just into it. I don't know if it interested me, but it took off, and we've never looked back since.
Good for you guys. That's pretty cool. And I love the classic, we started in our garage story. People say it as a cliche to say I started a business. You guys actually started the business in your garage.
We actually started the business in the garage. So yeah, and it was all based on just, my dad didn't, he wanted to walk before he ran, and just, let's try this out, see if it looks good. And he did. So, and we lost him in June of 2020. So he retired in 2014, but he didn't make it through 2020. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thanks. But he lived a long life. He's left a legacy, and now my son is in the business too, and we're killing it.
That's really cool.
Thanks.
Going to the third generation. I love it.
It is, absolutely.
Well, you kind of just started touching on it a second ago with when your dad bought that first CNC machine, but
a Fidel 4020.
Okay. Well, I imagine the technological advancements you've seen since you were a little kid, watching him do this, have just out of control. Just tremendous advancements. I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit about that, but I also want to hear you talk about the cultural shifts that you see going from one generation to the next. So why don't we start with the former?
Where do you want me to start? Okay,
you pick.
Let's talk technology, because you and I and all the listeners to your show know how technology is influencing our lives, right? From the cell phones to internet to emails, we're a victim. We succumb to those technologies all the time. But when you start implementing those technologies into a business is when you really start to see things move forward, and the needle really starts to move. So yes, it was CNC machine tools back in the mid 80s, the 90s. But then I swear, with the advent of the fax machine, and I don't know if you remember fax machines, Joe.
Yes, I'm aware of fax machines.
Okay,
yes.
I remember when we got our first fax machine at Carr Machine and Tool, and I thought it was so highly technological that I brought all the machinists in the office and I said, guys, this machine is going to revolutionize our business. They can fax us prints in a matter of seconds, and we can start making parts right away. And I remember the guys looking down, and how it used to just like crawl out. And literally in 20 seconds, we had a print from our customer, and we'd be making parts. So that was really the start of it. And then, the dial-up modem and internet and email. Email was huge, because now we could, instead of faxing those prints, we can email attachments. And then, of course, the CAD files, the CAD and CAM technology really amped it up. Gone are the days when I used to be on a CNC, standing out at the machine and just entering G and M codes right into the machine tool. Nowadays, our customer gives us a CAD file. We upload it to our CAM processor, which is Master CAM, and we just click on the solid or all the and create a tool path, and then it goes into a post processor for that appropriate machine and creates that NC program for that machine to read. So it has just really gone super fast. As you can imagine, without typing in all those codes, the probability of having errors has dramatically declined, because what we're doing is we're taking our customers' geometry and creating a tool path from their geometry. So there's no iterations to it. We're just moving. We're literally creating tool paths off that. So yeah, that CAD CAM technology, machine tool technology. Now what I'm seeing is inspection technology. We can take a scanner like a CMM and just scan with a laser a part, and it's going to extract all those dimensions from that surface and put it into a readable um, inspection report. Um, the other thing too is ERP technology. I mean, we made a shift to ProShop ERP about 3 years ago, and it is one of the single most important things we've done is run our business off a competent ERP system that talks our language and really understands. So we've got, ERP shop floor PCs that everyone's on all the time. It routes all the jobs, the operations, the finishes, everything. It's incredible.
That's awesome. I actually had Paul Van Meter on the show a couple of weeks ago. So
Oh, so he's a great guy, great
yeah, he's
guy.
an awesome guy. Yeah,
They're doing
he's
good stuff.
totally agree. I've heard you guys. He's been on Making Chips a number of times, hasn't he?
He
I've seen,
has, absolutely.
I've heard him on there before. Yeah, so well, pretty cool on the technology front as a whole. I mean, just we're just living in such an interesting time, almost regardless of what industry you're in. I mean, geez, being a marketing guy, I came up in I graduated from college in '05, and that was the fall of '05 is when Google Analytics hit the market, and it's just amazing to think that like you couldn't
Oh,
even measure anything like
and
until
not until when?
2005.
That was when you Google Analytics
Yeah.
actually
Isn't that
took off,
amazing?
and
It doesn't
you
seem
could,
like it's that long ago, but I mean, before that,
yeah,
your ability to measure anything digitally was
right,
pretty darn limited. So it's,
yeah,
like for me, I have the similar conversations what you're having with me right now, but with people about like how I've come up with marketing technology and just, I mean, where we've gone from there since over the last 16 years is it's unbelievable, really.
sure,
So
sure.
it's pretty
So
cool.
what was that other thing you wanted me to get to after the technology?
Yeah. So
Oh, the
I would the
culture.
culture side of things. Yeah, I'm just I can only imagine that running car, machine, and tool. When your dad started the business is a very different. From a
Oh
people
my God.
perspective, couldn't be
Oh
much
my
more different,
God.
right?
Oh my
So
God.
talk about that.
You want to hear an old story?
Yeah, I would love to hear an old
Okay.
story.
I'm like this young man, just, in my mid-20s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my dad used to have manufacturing planning with our machinists prior to them doing the job, and it was all manual, right? So years ago, they used to drill through the steel bar, and then they used to take a tool called a counterboring tool, and the pilot of that tool would match up with the diameter of the drilled hole, and then you just create a cap screw over the top. So he told the guy, I remember it distinctly. He said, Steve or Mark or Mike, he said, when you're doing this, be careful because it's not symmetrical off the center line. Be careful when you put you put the counterbore, make sure you put it on the wrong side. I'll be darned. 3 hours later, that machinist walked in the office and said, you're not going to believe it. My dad said, you put the counterbores on the wrong side. He goes, yep. He goes, I want you to punch out right now and repair the parts on your own time. Now, you talk about a cultural shift, right? That's probably illegal nowadays. And just the fact that my dad would punish the machinist for that. I mean, in all fairness, he did warn him about it, and he blatantly did not listen to him. But I mean, so we go from that extreme to an extreme where we embrace collaboration. We embrace meetings. Every Wednesday, I have an hour and a half meeting with my entire team. It started out just talking about production, just to get um, engagement between the office and the shop. So we can kind of marry it together because the office doesn't really know what's going on in the shop. And if we feel like we do know, it only helps in getting the customer on top and in knowing where their parts are. So we started talking about that, and it just like evolved into a production and strategy meeting or an update meeting. And I talk about I've been doing it for about 3 or 4 years. We created core values. We defined all four of our core values, which I thought were very important. We live by them. And in our meetings weekly, we talk about anything from, well, COVID-19. I talk about COVID-19 weekly, and I've been reporting on it since late March 2020 when the world ended back then. To I talk about the economy. How are things going? I get reports from NAM, National Association for Manufacturers, Illinois Manufacturing Association, and I extract key information from those reports to give to my employees because I feel it's important for them to know. And then we have field trips. We go to the International Machine Tool Show every other year when they had it. When they have it this year, they didn't have it, or last September they didn't have it. And we go on. We have educational and human development or networking type field trips. The educational ones are going to IMTS, where we're enlightening ourselves with new information, new technologies, and then the network developing ones where we go have fun. We'll go to a microbrewery. We went to Top Golf just a few weeks ago, and I think it's really important to be with your coworkers in a social environment because we all work hard every day, and we don't have a lot of time to get to know the guy that's 20 feet away from us, and it really helps. It really is important. So from what my dad taught me about running a shop and being culturally aware to what I've learned to actually practicing good culture, it is a night and day difference. And I can only imagine that it's helped us tremendously in employee retention, in hiring new people. For one thing, I do not hire any new employee unless that employee is first interviewed by me. Then if they make it through that interview, I bring them back, and I have every employee in the entire company interview that guy from 5 to 20 minutes, because I feel as though if you're talking to somebody, you're gonna get a vibe, you're gonna get a sense of what that person's all about. And if you feel like there's something weird, there's something funky going on with that person you're talking to, I need to know that as the employer. And as soon as that guy leaves, everyone gets together and said, how did you feel? How was your communication? Did you get any bad vibes? And I've already not hired people due to that because we felt as though that person didn't have a good cultural fit with Carr. So
I mean, that stuff's huge, and
it is.
I align with a lot of what you're talking about here in terms of what we've made important in our business. But I think especially you being in manufacturing right now in 2021. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before we hit record. But almost everybody I'm talking to is saying our biggest problem is we can't find people, we can't hire people. And when you have a culture that you've built a foundation there, you've built a good culture. I mean, there's no time better than right now for that to shine when frankly there's just not enough. There aren't enough people out there to do the jobs, and you got to stand out as an employer.
You have to be different. You have to be different. It's just like in marketing, and I know you understand marketing. Mm-hmm. If your marketing plan is like a apple pie, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but you have to have. When I think of marketing for a business, I think of it like a big apple pie, right? Maybe a Dutch apple pie, but every sliver of that pie, no matter if it's a sliver or a slab, is a piece of your whole marketing plan. I believe that the more culturally aligned you can get with your employees, like that piece of pie, I think it's going to just really amp up your brand, and it's going to attract new people. And I think ultimately, if you have a great, healthy work environment, it's going to show in the work, right? You're more apt to do, if you're mad at the guy next to you, or you just don't like the guy that's next to you, or and you're doing a job, you're probably going to go slower. You're not going to care about tolerance. You're not going to care about microfinish or whatever the case may be. But if you do really have a healthy culture, a work environment every day, I guarantee you it is definitely going to show overall in your performance as a company.
Um, Jim, if I recall correctly, you said your company runs on EOS or traction. Is that right?
It does. That was part of the shift in culture, because it is a cultural shift to have a systematized way to run your business, and that's what EOS is all about. It's the entrepreneurial operating system. It's a book called Traction, written by Gino Wickman. And I'll be very honest about this. When Jason and I first started the podcast, we'd have guests on, like you having me on, that would be talking about culture. See, because Jason was always the culture guy, I was always the manufacturing guy. So we'd invite people on that were practicing EOS, and I'd be asking the questions, and I thought, you know what? I'm talking the talk, but I'm not walking the walk. So I did, in fact, from the podcast, start reading and implementing EOS traction. And it has been, it's one of those, I call it, there's 5 things that have revolutionized my business in the last 5 years. And EOS is definitely one of those legs for sure. It's been incredible. You're running traction as well, right?
Yeah, just as of recently, my business partner John and I, we read Traction. It was probably 5 years ago, honestly, when we read it for the first time, and we pulled little elements of it, and we started, kind of piecemealing our way through bits and pieces that we liked. And then we wound up hiring a consultant outside of our company who did a really great job for us, but he pulled, he wasn't a EOS pure implementer. And after he was had moved on from working with us, things kind of fell apart. And then it was last year, probably about this time, where John and I said, it's like, let's just do EOS pure. Let's just do this right. There are certain elements of the system. Some of the terminology gets a little, it feels a little cheesy, and
it is. I know, but that's.
But who cares, right?
It adds to the mystique of it.
Yeah, it does.
It's kind of like you're doing something cool, right?
yeah. But it kind of, some of that stuff kind of bothered us a little early on. But then we're like, okay, who cares? Everything's got a name. There's a process for everything. And so we embraced it. We hired an implementer from the outside. We started in December, so we're approaching a half year in. And I mean, geez, it's everything I would have hoped that it could be for us already. I mean, we had our L10 this morning, and we all rated it 9s and 10s, which is becoming pretty typical. You rate the meeting at the end of your weekly meeting.
If it's less than an 8, you got to explain why.
You got to explain why, exactly. Yeah. But what's just been great for us is we are solving real business problems. We're surfacing the biggest issues in this company, and we are working on them every week. And that's been probably the most the most I don't want to say transformational yet. We're only 6 months in, but I see it happening right in front of my eyes.
I swear to God. Yeah. I mean, part of the reason that we bought our new building 2 blocks away is because that was my goal, my quarterly goal, which we, as you know, are called rocks, was to the first quarter was make the decision to actually determine if moving is valid. So I said yes. We as a L10 team decided that yes, we need to move. The next quarter was finding that building, and I did. And it's always looming on my shoulders, right? I've got to get my rock done. I've got to get my rock done. So it forces you, it reminds you, it tasks you with all those things that you need to do to be accountable to making sure that rock happens.
That's right. And it just forces you to prioritize as a company what things are most important, because there are a million things you could be doing, right? That you want to be
There are,
doing. And you got to figure
yes,
out where are we going to put our energy, and let's do it right and let's get it done and hold ourselves accountable to it.
right. Well, I think that we all are working and everyone's working siloed, right? And everyone's doing their own thing. Everyone's got their own responsibilities to take care of. But I think when your leadership team comes together in operations, in sales, in finance, that's when you can really start talking about the entire company, because those are basically the three things that how a company operates is finance, operations, and sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really it's been incredibly successful for us, and my son's read the book. Well, he's doing an Audible now on the second time around,
Mm-hmm.
but we did all read it as a team, took notes, discussed it every week, went through GWC'd everything, and yeah, a lot of fun.
Well, any leaders of manufacturing organizations out there, if you're not familiar with Traction by Gino Wickman, just do yourself a favor, pick up a copy, spend a few hours reading the book, and decide if it could be something for you, because it's just a really powerful system for getting everybody on the same page, working toward the same goals inside your company.
Yeah, you got to let go of the vine, right? That's how the
Yeah.
book
Mm-hmm.
starts. Is you got to let go of the vine. You got to take a chance. You got to have a little bit of risk.
That's right. Well, Jim, let's talk about making chips a little bit here. I want to
Oh,
hear a little
that little
bit of
podcast that we
that
got
little
going on.
podcast that we've all heard of.
Yeah.
So I've touted you and Jason Zenger as the OGs of manufacturing podcasting. You guys kind of paved the way here. How did this come to be? Let's hear about what made you decide we're going to do a podcast when, frankly, nobody in this industry was doing a podcast, and you probably questioned a little bit if anybody was going to listen to you. So let's hear it.
I remember when we got the 13,000 downloads, I couldn't believe it. But anyway, November 2013, Jason and I were asked to be on a local Chicago AM radio station, just because Jason was doing things with culture at his company, and I was doing social media marketing for a machine shop. It was highly unusual for both of those to happen. This radio show was interested in what we were doing. It was something different. Again, being different gets you noticed, right? We went on the show. We killed it. And about a week after the show aired, I think it aired like on a Saturday morning at 6 a.m. They probably had 5 people listening to us, right? But anyway, Jason called me and he said, he goes, we crushed that interview. He said, you really understand manufacturing. You've been living it your entire life. You know what you're talking about, and you're doing something different. You're doing social media marketing, and which, again, frankly, no one was doing back in 2013. He said, do you know what a podcast is? And I said, yes, I do. I said, aren't they kind of like old? He says, well, as a matter of fact, they are old, but with the advent of 4G technology, they're having a resurgence because now we can download and we can stream faster than we ever could. Otherwise, it was buffering, right? So he asked me if I knew what a podcast was. I said I did. He said, do you listen to them? And I said, no, quite frankly, I don't. He says, well, I listen to about, I think at that time he was listening to 15 or 20 or 30 or whatever the heck it was. He says, I think we could do one. I think we could be successful. I said, okay. That's when that light bulb went off in my head and I had like an aha moment. So here's an opportunity to do something different in a space that nobody else is doing at the right time. And I called them and I said, give me 24 hours to think about it. And I did. And I called them back and I said, I'm going to try it. I'm going to go for it. I have the opportunity. I have the freedom to work outside of my business on something else. I said, but here's the thing. I will not do it unless I really research it, because it's our brand. And I really want to retain a high brand level of myself and my manufacturing company. And I just don't want to put anything out there that's less than excellent in quality. So Joe, we literally for a year we plan what's the average commute in America because we wanted to get it in the length of the show in under that time. Um, I remember Jason and I sitting at brunch drinking mimosas all morning, taking notes and coming up with the name of the show. And actually, Jason was the one that said, "What about making chips?" And I said, how do you even know what that word is? Because that's really truly a manufacturer shop floor word, and he didn't know. Um, but we spent a lot of time, you know, we went to Jason, we joined a Facebook page, a Podcaster's Paradise Facebook page, and we would be asking online on that platform, it was a closed group. We'd be asking people questions like what kind of microphones, what kind of recording um, stuff are you using, and then the music to the show. He let me pick that because that's kind of my thing. And then we hired voice talent, voiceovers for the opening, the lead in, and then the intro and the outro. I mean, it was really all well put together like a puzzle. So we finally launched. Like December 28th through December 30th, I think was our first. We put it up on Libsyn and went out to the iTunes. And that was, well, we say January 2015. And within about 4 weeks, it made it to the iTunes new and noteworthy. And then I had a marketing company that I was working with at the time that was helping with PR. So a couple of huge manufacturing trade publications picked it up, did a couple articles on it. Again, I was pretty um, articulate with social media. So I would constantly be putting it up on social sites. And of course, all the people that follow me are manufacturers that are going to. Plus, I was the chairman of the board of a manufacturing company here in Chicago. I had a lot of people that knew me, that I was friends with and peers with, that would sit in on the show and tell their stories, just like I told the story about my dad having the guy punch out. We all want to hear relatable stories in our industry, and it creates that emotional connection. And that's really when you get a long time listeners, when you can make that emotional. We call it on the show the goosebump moment, when Jason or I or Nick now can say something so relatable that person goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe he just said that. That's happened to me 10 times in my career," or "It's happened to me just yesterday," or "Oh my God, I've got that same problem going on in my shop right now with HR," or anything. It could, anything. So it just really started to snowball in the first, second quarter of 2015. And like I said, I remember when I'd go on to Libsyn and we had 13,000 downloads. And I said, "My God, I can't believe people are even interested in what I've got to say." So, um, you know, it, again, Joe, it's crazy to think that in this part of my career that I'm actually doing something that is so natural, and people actually care to listen to me and tell my story. And hopefully, I can equip, inspire, and entertain them a little bit at the same time, because we all like to laugh, right?
Absolutely. I think,
Yeah,
I mean, one thing I just love about this medium is it humanizes people. Like it
it
brings out,
does.
you get to see your personality. You are the person behind Car, Machine, and Tool, and this brings you out into the public space. And like people want to work with people they like and who they trust their expertise. And you're not just some guy behind a company name that no one ever sees or hears. So I think that's a really powerful sort of underlooked or overlooked, I should say, element of this medium that's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
powerful. That's cool. How many episodes you guys at this point? Do you know off the top of your head or
yeah.
ballpark?
Well, I'm plus or minus 3. I think we're at about 270.
270. Wow, that's amazing. Well, I didn't.
It is amazing.
A lot of work. I mean, when you add all
Uh,
that up, the time that
I
went into that.
Yeah, I remember like when we first would get together, we'd have to find us. Well, we would record our episodes in Jason's furnace room in his company, which was just literally a half a mile outside of O'Hare International Airport. And we'd have to pause because there would be a jet flying overhead. You know what I mean? So we'd have the editor would have to. I'm not lying about this at all. We'd be in his furnace room recording. We'd even drink a bottle of wine together because we were a little nervous. You know what I mean?
Can't blame you.
And showing up the first couple times, we didn't have the right wires, and we're like, oh my god, what's next? You know? But you just push through and you just keep going. You just keep going.
It gets easier, right?
It does get easier. It always gets easier.
Yeah. Well, so 260 some episodes for you guys. I didn't mention this to you yet, but this is kind of a special episode for me. This is number 52, meaning that this one will officially cap off year one for me of my show. I hit every single Tuesday morning for a year. I've been able to make this happen and go live, and it's been one of the best podcasting. I can't speak more highly about this as a medium and an opportunity for people. I mean, from the people I've met and been able to talk to, best-selling authors, leaders of huge and small manufacturing organizations, leaders of industry organizations in the manufacturing space. It's been the best market research I've ever done. I've made more connections in the last year doing this. I've learned so much, and this has been the core of our content strategy for my company. I mean, we take these episodes and we chop them up into videos. We write blog posts from the content, and it just accomplishes so much, and it's a lot of fun, frankly. So I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. Likewise.
Cool. Okay. Last thing I want to hit on here, Jim, because we've been going for a while here, which is great.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any problems talking. So.
Yeah, I don't either. So you put us two together and talk all day.
Dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. So I listened. I mentioned earlier I was out staining my deck on Friday and queued up a few Making Chips episodes, and one of them that I listened to, you and Jason went through, I think it was 25 trends that you see ahead in manufacturing, especially, coming out of this pandemic. And I'm not going to sit here and ask you to rehash the episode, but I'm curious.
No, I couldn't.
Yeah. But I'd be curious. Is there anything that you'd look at and say, this right here, I don't know if people see this coming, but I think this is on the horizon, or just something you feel strongly about that you see changing in the space right now? So
I do.
I'll turn it over to you and take that where you want.
Honestly, Jason owned that episode. So here, just quickly, Jason has a show structure. He picks he crafts the show structure. Mm-hmm. So that was his, and then we discuss it in advance, and then we go for it. So it was his. So I don't remember all 25, but I will tell you what I genuinely, whether that was on that list of 25 or not, I genuinely believe that we are ready for another huge milestone in technology. I have really seen it. It's really grown a lot in the last 3 years. And it seems like every 5-year period, the technology just advances so much faster than it did the time before that. So I really believe that, especially in our industry, the technologies that we're using to operate it. And again, remember, we've got shop floor technology, we've got ERP technology, computer technology, we got inspection technology. I really believe that all of those are really going to advance. And then there's robotic technology, robots that take the parts, put it in the machine. That is huge. That's blowing up right now. So that's what I believe the next 3 years, we're going to see a lot of advancements in.
Yeah, I think you have a better perspective being right there than I do. But I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of my interviews recently have been with individuals inside of automation, AI, robotics. I led a panel discussion on Clubhouse a couple of weeks ago with the VP of sales from Fanuc America and Plus Run Robotics, president there, and a few others that are at the heart of it. And it is just fascinating to me to hear what's going on, and also how important it is for American manufacturing to keep up with what's happening in China, and to stay ahead of the technology curve here. if we want to, keep, allow American manufacturing to keep advancing. So I mean, geez, you know better than me, but I'm hearing the same and seeing it from a lot of different angles.
And I think business is going to be good well into 22. That's what the smart people out there, the people with the crystal balls, the fortune balls, that's what they say. That it's going to be good well into 22, and I have to agree. I think that it's really strong now. We really didn't have a downturn for us in 2020 during the pandemic. It was a time for us to get ready for the big upsurge, and now I'm seeing it just in the last 5 weeks. I'm really seeing it move the needle. So
good stuff. Well, Jim, is there anything you want to say to kind of put a bow on this episode?
Yeah, I think that to the people out there, just know that we talked a lot about taking a chance, and when you know it's right, or when you think it's good, or having that aha moment in the back of your head, I think people should act on it. I mean, I don't necessarily act right away, but when you have one of those thoughts, you should definitely write it down and act on it within an appropriate amount of time, whatever that is. If it's buying a new building, of course, I'm not going to say make an offer on it tomorrow, but really think it through. Think about the risks versus the rewards. And if you evaluate that, I think that you could be successful in your own right.
I always like to say, just friggin' start, like you got to just dive in and start. So.
Right. But you have to think about it. It has to be, it has to be strategic. So.
Awesome. Well, Jim, can you tell our audience how they can get in touch with you, where they can learn more about both Carr Machine and Tool and making chips?
Sure. My full-time job is Carr Machine and Tool. It's carmachine.com, CARRMACHINE.com. Or Jim at makingchips.com. That's a good email address to contact me through. Or LinkedIn. I'm pretty relevant on LinkedIn. You can go to my LinkedIn profile, Jim Carr, request a connection. I'll be happy to connect with you there. It's a good place to talk to me.
Awesome. Well, this was a fantastic conversation, Jim. It was really, really fun to do this with you today. So
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. I hope I inspired some people to do some better things.
I'm sure you have. And hopefully it was fun for you to be the one the one being interviewed as opposed to the interviewer. So something a little different.
You bet.
Awesome. Well,
all right, my friend.
We'll put a wrap on this. And as for the rest of you, I hope to catch you on the next episode of The Manufacturing Executive.